Liebe Zuschauer, mit dem aktuellen Interview zieht Scott Ritter sich in eine 2-monatige Sommerpause zurück. Das nächste Interview mit Gegenpol ist für Ende Juli geplant. Wir richten unseren Blick auf Europa. Während die russische Offensive in der Ukraine Fahrt aufnimmt, träumen insbesondere die baltischen Staaten noch immer von einer Niederlage Moskaus. Die estnische Ministerpräsidentin Kaja Kallas schwärmte Mitte Mai davon, dass eine Niederlage Russlands keine schlechte Sache für die Gesellschaft sei. Russland könnte dann in mehrere kleine Nationen zerschnitten werden. Das wäre eine gute Sache. Was sagst du zu diesen Gedankenspielen? Wie schwer fallen sie ins Gewicht, etwa in der Bestimmung der politischen Ausrichtung der EU oder der NATO?
Well, I mean, there's nothing new in such a plan. It's been the plan of the United States since the end of the Cold War. One of the central strategies of the United States during the decade of the 90s was to have Russia break up into smaller states, each of which would be more easily controlled. And by doing so, you deny them all the collective strength that comes from the extensive mineral resources and economic potential of a unified Russian Federation. So she doesn't get any points for originality. She's basically taking, post-Cold War thinking and giving it a voice today. I believe that most astute observers of Russia understand that any effort to break up the Russian Federation triggers Russia's nuclear intervention. That the deterrence principle behind Russia's strategic nuclear arsenal is firmly attached to securing the totality of the Russian nation. And that any effort to strip away or break up the nation will be seen as an existential threat by the Russian government, and nuclear weapons would be used. I don't need to remind any of the Baltic states that one nuclear weapon terminates their total existence, but Russia wouldn't even waste a nuclear weapon on them. That Russia could easily occupy all 3 states within a span of a week or two. And it's probably best just to shut up and stop talking nonsense. Her statements generate interest in the media. We're talking about it, but the fact of the matter is it's not going to move the needle in NATO. NATO's not suicidal at this point. NATO fully understands Russia's strategic nuclear doctrine and what it's attached to, and so does the United States. This is a case of, the preteen listening in on the adult conversation overnight, and then walking in and sitting down and thinking that they have something relevant to say simply because they parrot out of context statements they may have heard a grown-up say. The Baltic states are not mature nation states. The policies they promote are not mature policies. And it should be treated in that fashion.
Die EU hat jüngst die Entscheidung getroffen, Ende Juni formelle Beitrittsgespräche mit der Ukraine und mit Moldawien aufzunehmen. Angepeilt wird ein Beitritt zum Jahr 2030 hin. Gleichzeitig arbeitet Brüssel daran, beschlagnahmte und eingefrorene russische Vermögenswerte allmählich an die Ukraine zu transferieren. Der tschechische Außenminister Jan Lipavský schrieb über X, dass noch dieses Jahr die Zinserträge der russischen Vermögen in Höhe von 3,5 Milliarden Euro in die Ukraine fließen sollen. Russland hingegen hatte bereits vergangenen Monat erklärt, dass ein solcher Schritt einen gefährlichen internationalen Präzedenzfall schaffen würde. Ausländische Investoren würden in Zukunft abgeschreckt werden, ihr Kapital in der EU zu investieren. Wie bewertest du den politischen Kurs der EU? Was bewirken die Beitrittsgespräche mit der Ukraine und Moldawien? Und welche Folgen hätte der Transfer russischer Vermögenswerte nach Kiew für die EU?
First of all, any talk of Ukrainian accession in the EU is, ridiculous. There will be no Ukraine by 2030, or whatever is called Ukraine will be something other than that which is being currently considered for admission into Europe. So If Europe wants to have fantasy-driven gatherings and ruminate about X, Y, and Z, that's fine. I mean, I've played World of Warcraft. I can fly on a dragon sometimes. I can pretend to be an orc. I can become a very rich man by playing computer games. And this is pretty much what Europe's doing. They're playing a live action role playing game where they pretend to be relevant, although they're not. Moldova, I don't want to speak for Russia because I can't speak for Russia, but I will just speak as an observer. If you continue to play stupid games, don't be surprised when you get stupid results. Moldova is a very fragile nation state right now. Its president isn't as popular as she thinks she is. She's tried to make herself more relevant by strongly embracing a Western narrative, the notion that Moldova can join the EU. But Moldova has things that maybe the president should think about, such as where are they going to get their energy from? They get it from Russia right now. But more importantly, they have two breakaway republics, not one. Of course, you have the Transnistria region, but you have another breakaway place, and I'll butcher it, but it's like Gaugauz or something of that nature. I know that all of the citizens of that region are going to call up and claim that I am ignorant, and I admit to a certain level of ignorance, but there is an additional breakaway part of the Moldova. The leader of this breakaway area has gone to Moscow, has had discussions with Moscow, and all indications are that at the appropriate time, if pushed to do so, Russia would more than likely encourage this part of Moldova to break away. That'll create a crisis in Moldova, which of course is neither a European Union state nor a NATO state. Therefore, the EU and NATO options are extraordinarily limited. And if the breakaway takes place roughly at a time when Russia affects a land bridge between its current forces and Transnistria, becomes a fait accompli because NATO won't be able to do anything about it. Is this the kind of game that NATO wants to play? It's really something that people should start thinking about. They think that they have some sort of leverage over Russia, but again, they're just playing stupid games. Russia plays genuine, real, geopolitical driven, games. BRICS. Do they not understand that the Russian attitude about the theft of its resources isn't limited to Russia, but will be part of an international forum that comprises the global South and other growing and major economies, and that the best way to ensure that the rules-based international order, the economic component thereof, which is based on the notion that the dollar will continue to be the global reserve currency, and as a result, there will be reserve currency depositories throughout the world that have traditionally been used to facilitate trade. That world powers will say we will no longer deposit our national wealth in these depositories because NATO, the European Union, the United States will just steal them when they want to. This is the death knell of the Bretton Woods derived economic system. It shows that Europe is nothing but a bunch of bank robbers. And any European who thinks this is a good idea, understand that there but for the grace of God go you. One day soon, you will have your wealth stripped away from you. Every European nation that participates in this brazen open theft of Russian assets, ask yourself how many billions or tens of billions of dollars worth of European assets are stranded in Russia today in the form of, investments, etc. Do you think Russia is really going to give a damn about European law and insulting the European people when Russia says, just take it, it's ours, we own it? And do you think the world is going to turn to Russia and say, you can't do that, that's European property? Europe has set the precedent of the robber thief. And so if that's the game you want to play, that's the price you'll pay as well. You'll have your assets stolen. This is stupidity in the extreme on the part of Europe. They're engaged in an act that will destroy them economically, and it doesn't provide any benefit to Ukraine. No benefit whatsoever. But since when has Europe been smart about anything recently? So I guess this is par for the course. Good job, Europe. You lived up to our very low expectations.
Wir sprachen gerade über Moldawien. Die EU hat vor kurzem ein Sicherheits- und Verteidigungspartnerschaftsabkommen unterzeichnet. Moldawien ist somit das erste Land, das ein solches Abkommen mit der EU unterzeichnet hat. Im März hatte Frankreich bereits eine Sicherheitspartnerschaft mit Moldawien unterzeichnet. Dies untermauert, dass der Westen sich verstärkt militärisch einbringen will in Moldawien. Welche Sicherheits- und Verteidigungspartnerschaften können EU oder NATO Moldawien gewähren? Könnte Moldawien zu einer neuen Ukraine werden? Zu einem neuen Rambock gegen Russland?
No, I mean, again, if they continue to go down this route, Moldova will self-destruct and cease to exist as a state. It's sort of funny how the West is talking about providing secure guarantees to Moldova when Romania is talking about doing away with the Moldovan language, saying you don't have a Moldovan language, it's the Romanian language, and you're really part of Romania. So is America, what happens when Romania intervenes into a collapsing Moldova? A NATO member of the EU, just intervened. Security guarantees, you're going to go to war against Ukraine. This is hypocrisy in the extreme. It's a non-starter. Nobody will lift a finger for Moldova. No NATO troops will die for Moldova. Moldova will just disappear.
Das Szenario eines Zusammenbruchs der ukrainischen Frontlinie scheint nun auch im Westen zu dämmern. Entsprechend ändern sich plötzlich Vorgaben, die der Ukraine für die Verwendung westlicher Waffen gemacht wurden, insbesondere für die Marschflugkörper. Anfang Mai erklärte schon der britische Außenminister David Cameron, dass Kiew das Recht habe, mit den britischen Storm Shadow Marschflugkörpern auch Ziele in Russland selbst anzuvisieren. Jüngst meldete sich die ehemalige US-Vizeaußenministerin Victoria Nuland zu Wort und forderte, dass die US-Regierung der Ukraine grünes Licht geben solle, um russische Basen auch im Landesinneren anzugreifen. Wird Washington Kiew eine entsprechende Freigabe geben? Welchen militärischen Nutzen könnte die Ukraine damit erzielen und welches Risiko gehen Großbritannien und die USA damit ein?
I think Russia's already made it clear that if Ukraine uses British-provided weapons to strike targets inside Russia, knowing that the British government has greenlit this, that the retaliation will be not just against Ukraine, but against British decision-making centers in Europe and in the United Kingdom. Russia just did and I think it's still ongoing, a major exercise of their tactical nuclear weapons in the 58th Army in the Southern Military District zone of operations. These are the weapons that would be used if escalation was required based upon the actions of Ukraine. I don't believe the United States will give such a green light because I hope that the Biden administration understands the potential consequences. The British right now labor under the notion that Putin is just bluffing, and that the Russians don't intend to, act strongly if such a thing occurred. We need to understand a couple of things. One, that nothing the Ukrainians do are going to change the outcome of this conflict. Could they strike a command and control center? Could they kill a general or two generals or three generals? Could they blow up, a train? Could they blow up an oil depot? Yes, they can do all that. Russia's not a minor state. It's a major state. Its military has resilience. Its military has contingencies. Its military has reserves. And its military will not be halted by any such attacks by Ukraine. It could trigger, it should trigger, severe Russian reprisals against decision-making centers. So far, Russia has shown great restraint in terms of targeting the Ukrainian presidency, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, Ukrainian ministries, and the Ukrainian parliament. One would have to believe that if Ukraine were to participate in attacks of strategic Russian targets, that Russia would open up the target deck to include these governmental targets that they haven't to date struck. But the greatest threat of escalation is that the Russians would strike the United Kingdom. And I think if a Ukrainian strike inflicted serious harm on Russia, that the Russian retaliation would include the United Kingdom and other British-related decision-making centers throughout NATO. And this, of course, could lead to a conflict with NATO and lead to nuclear war. So it's a very dangerous situation. Again, nothing anybody does is going to change the outcome of this battle. Russia has won. Russia will win. Russia can't be stopped from winning. Every military observer recognizes this. I think the goal right now is to use Ukraine while it's still able to inflict as much harm on Russia as possible. But then Ukraine will be disposed of.
Der ukrainische Präsident Wladimir Selenskij fordert, dass die NATO selbst russische Raketen über der Ukraine abschießen solle. Er formulierte wörtlich: Meine Frage ist also, wo liegt das Problem? Warum können wir sie nicht abschießen? Ist es Verteidigung? Ja. Ist es ein Angriff auf Russland? Nein. Was sagst du zu den Aussagen von Selenskij? Und findet er überhaupt noch Gehör im Westen? Immerhin reiste Bundesaußenministerin Annalena Baerbock jüngst nach Kiew und ließ sich dort einen Verdienstorden für die Ukraine-Hilfe verleihen.
I think anybody with a modicum of common sense knows that if you engage the military of another nation with your military, that's an act of war. And the other military has a right of retaliation against the point of origin of where you used your military. So, Zelensky wants Patriot missiles to be based in Poland and to shoot down Russian missiles that are attacking strategic Ukrainian targets in Western Ukraine. The second a missile or radar, anything related, engages in a tactical fashion, it becomes a legitimate target. And Russia has made it clear that it will treat it as a target. So again, it's just expanding the war to bring in NATO. It's the same thing if you, have a F-16 fighter operating out of a Romanian base. If it takes off from the Romanian base, goes into Ukraine, drops a bomb on the Russians in Ukraine, then returns to a Romanian base, that Romanian base has now become a legitimate target of war. Everybody knows this. And so I don't think anybody, people are listening to Zelensky, but I don't think anybody's listening anymore. He's not a factor in this war.